keynote plenary is, what shall I do with all my money? We have with us Jayesh Parekh, co-founder of Sony Entertainment Television. He is also now an advisor board member to several organizations, including Jungle Ventures, Avishkar, Sanctum Wealth Management, One Animation, and Milap. Jayesh is also co-producer of Jalki, a film inspired by Nobel Prize winner Kailash Satyarthi. Jayesh recently produced a book titled, What Shall We Do with All This Money? And it is in this context that he will be speaking to our next guests for the session, Kiran and Binny. Jayesh, very warm welcome to Charcha 2020, and over to you for the session.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. And I want to first thank Atul, Shatija, and Naj for inviting me to host the next 1 hour at Charcha 2020, which, as I understand, has been attended by over 15,000 people from 50 countries on Zoom and on YouTube. So we will be spending the next 1 hour chatting with two amazing and successful entrepreneurs. So just as a background, I'm originally from Calcutta, and now what it is called is Kolkata. And I compiled this book of interviews, which is What Shall We Do with All This Money? So it's inspiring perspectives on money, essentially. So I'm just making sure that my video can be seen, because I can't see my own video. So this book, What Shall We Do with All This Money, is basically a compilation of interviews with over 50 heroes and unsung heroes, men and women of Indian diaspora worldwide, from USA, UK, Africa, Middle East, Singapore, Malaysia, India, folks like Mr. Ratan Tata, Amit Chandra, Rohini Nilekani, Vineet Rai, Vikram Gandhi, Professor Jagdish Sheth, Shekhar Kapoor, Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Mohandas Pai, Om Swami, Deepak Chopra, and many others. You can check out the book at allthismoney.com. And at the end of the chat, we will come back again to the book. And that brings me to the topic today, which is a twist from the title of the book, which is What Shall I Do with All This Money? And today, my first guest is the well-known billionaire entrepreneur, Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, chairperson and founder of Biocon. Welcome, Kiran. And Kiran, as we have folks from all over the world tuning in, may I please request you to just briefly tell us the milestones that brought you here? Can I introduce yourself, please? Thank you.
Well, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I never planned to start my own company. I came back as a trained brewmaster and I couldn't find a job. And it was an accidental encounter that got me to start Biocon over 40 years ago. And my journey has been one of challenges, one of building credibility. And of course, it's been a very exciting journey, building a biotech company, in fact, India's first biotech company, and bringing it to the stage it is today. Obviously, my eureka moment was when I listed Biocon in 2004, when all of a sudden it made me realize that I had created a huge amount of value and that I was now being called India's richest woman. And that is when I realized that it is not about money, it's about value, and it's about wealth creation for making a difference. And that's when I started my very philanthropic journey as well, because it was then that I realized that my late father had said to me at one stage that money is not a currency with which to buy favors, but it is a currency with which to make a difference. And those words stayed with me forever. And that is what money means to me. How do I make a difference? How do I basically, include people who are not as fortunate as me to participate in wealth creation?
Well, thank you so much for that. And so can you just expand a little bit on your perspective on wealth as you were growing up, and then how has that transformed today?
Like I said, when I was growing up, I grew up in a middle-class family. And I think all of us were taught very important values in life. You know, my late father, who was a great influence on me, always said to me, you know, every person has strengths and weaknesses. Focus on the strengths. Every person needs to be looked at in terms of how do we, uh, collaborate. And he also said to me that, you know, it's important for us to remember that everyone is not as fortunate as us, especially in a country like India. And you know, one particular anecdote which actually refers to that little quote that I mentioned previously was about when I failed to get into medical college. And when I said to my dad, why don't you buy a seat for me? That's when he said to me, listen, money is not a currency to buy favors. You know, it is a currency to make a difference. And please understand, the most important value is, you know, make sure that you always build credibility and that you aspire to, you know, you aspire for things which are genuine and honestly achieved. So have that honesty of purpose. So those were some of the early growing up values which I imbibed, and which is something which I still believe in very, very strongly.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And so that brings me to our current topic, which is what shall I do with all this money? And so, obviously, all our listeners, we would love to get your thoughts on allocation of wealth from your vantage point.
You know, as I said, for me, philanthropy has been very entwined in my purpose of life. Okay, my purposeful mission in life has been very philanthropic. So yes, I have managed to create a lot of wealth and value. Of course, a lot of that is notional wealth because it's always tied with what your value of your company is all about. What is your market cap of your company is about. But I think more than anything else, I've, as you know, taken the giving pledge, which means that I want to really make sure that half my wealth is given to philanthropy. And when I started creating wealth and when I started realizing that I had wealth at my disposal, the first thing I did was, what can I do to make a difference? And the first thing I did was build a cancer center, because I felt that this was very, very important for a country like India. And that is my first act of philanthropy, where I built a 1,000-bedded medical center, cancer hospital, in partnership with Dr. Devi Shetty. My philanthropy is very directed towards healthcare, higher education, primary healthcare, and art and culture. You know, I have very varied interests in supporting various causes. And for me, it started with building that hospital. And of course, it was also very important that as a part of that hospital, I wanted to create a translational research center, which I did. And then later on, I started, supporting higher education at MIT, at Sloan Kettering, at Glasgow University, so that people from India, researchers from India, could have the opportunity to pursue advanced research and come back to India and start their own labs. And I'm very happy that this is working, because one of the first few recipients of my fellowship at MIT has actually started a bioengineering lab at IISc in Bangalore. So I think these kind of things are extremely important for me. How do I make a difference? How do I value add? Of course, I've also participated and one of the founding patrons of the Museum of Art and Photography in Bangalore, because I feel that we need to also support art. So, you know, these are the ways I have really used my philanthropy in education, in healthcare, in art and culture. And of course, I also spontaneously come forward at a time of adversity like this, where obviously I have also donated to various causes which are about COVID response.
Okay, so we'll come back to that in a second. But Kiran, can you just help us a little bit as we struggle through this giving? So a lot of people who are from business background like you, entrepreneur, we sweat a lot on outcome management in our business. How do you do when you are giving? And are you always looking at outcome measurement, or are you also enjoying the journey? Is there a journey in it? Is there an emotion in it?
More than outcome, I think I want to assess impact. Okay, am I making impact? Is my philanthropy making impact? You see, it's very clinical and very business-like to constantly focus on outcome. But to me, impact is a much bigger factor. So for instance, the hospital that I built, is it making impact? It is making impact, because when I come to the hospital and I see thousands of people in the outpatient department and all the wards being occupied, I think I can see I'm making impact. I don't want to come and see, I don't want to measure the actual outcome, because that is for the hospital to do, right? The hospital has a business model. My view is, am I making impact? Am I providing affordable access to patients who need these kind of treatments? Are we in a position to give very cutting edge advanced treatments to these patients? And those are the kind of things I look for.
Okay, but is there a personal journey in this? Is there a personal journey as well in this?
Of course there is. Of course there is, because everything is something which is very close to what I believe in. It is, and that is why I support these kind of initiatives, because it's something that inspires me, something that excites me, something that I want to be a part of.
Okay, and so now coming to the current situation, which is, what I say that is there's a massive need of the hour. And Kiran, all of us are struggling with this, and maybe I can ask you for your insight on how do you find the balance between calamity giving, which is sort of the need of the hour now, versus sustainable development, right, or long-term goals?
I think, you have to find your balance. I think at a time of adversity, you have to respond. And when there is no adversity, you have to believe in some sustainable goals. For me, universal healthcare is my eventual goal in supporting primary healthcare and supporting tertiary healthcare in the way I'm doing. For me, the ultimate goal is to look at innovation and to look at research-driven and science-driven thinking. But at a time of adversity, you will support science that can address this adversity. So I'm supporting a lot of research and startups who are coming up with innovative ideas. I've also participated in ACT, which is again a fund that is basically looking at COVID solutions. So I think all of us have to balance between a spontaneous philanthropic act at a time of adversity, which is an acute philanthropic act, and then a sustainable, more long-term kind of philanthropic effort, which is sustainable and which you believe in. So if you believe in things like environmental sustainability, then that's what you should be also focusing on long term. Nothing happens in a short term. So whether it is healthcare, whether it's environmental sustainability, whether it's education, I think you have to understand that these are long-term efforts. It cannot happen on a year-on-year basis. It cannot happen like in business on a quarter-by-quarter kind of evaluation. So I think some of them need long-term investments, some of them need perpetual investments, and some of them require acute kind of initiatives, something like this, where when COVID strikes, all of us have to do something. So, whether it is about supporting the procurement of PPEs or ventilators or masks, or whether it is supporting research that is finding a vaccine or a diagnostic test or a therapeutic. I think this is the way I look at it.
Okay, great. And so do you also have a formula on how or do you allocate at all between grants, which is basically giving to nonprofits, versus, let's say, for example, microfinance, microlending, and impact investment, where you invest in social enterprises?
My way of investing is really it depends on what the whole opportunity is or what the grant is about. So I'm basically focusing a lot on grant-based, kind of philanthropy. I have invested a little bit in social enterprise from time to time, but most of my philanthropy is based on grants, because I believe that these grants have to address a certain minimal expectations, and most of these grantees are able to assure me that it will be put to good use. So if I, and then I don't have to really worry, except for making sure that I track what that grant is being used for and the impact it is making. So that's, for me, the easier way of doing it. And of course, I have worked with NGOs. Of course, I do invest in many important initiatives that have been started by NGOs. So I would say I would say 70% of my philanthropy is in grants, and the other 25% is also grants, but in sort of the NGO region, NGO area.
Okay, and so you touched upon the fact that you have participated and committed to the Giving Pledge, which was spearheaded by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, wherein you pledged to dedicate 50% of your wealth to giving back. And it's similar to Living My Promise. It's an initiative 2 and 4 in India. Can you just give us some insights on this Giving Pledge?
Well, basically, it's a pledge basically to create a league of philanthropists, basically a worldwide league of philanthropists who basically want to basically influence others to join this mission. Because, like you said, your own book is about what do I do with all this money. And I think basically the Giving Pledge also wants to make people understand that, their money needs to be put to better use. And so you can use your money not on yourself, but on more philanthropic kind of initiatives. And there is such a growing league of such philanthropists in the world. And I think it inspires you to be part of it, because you learn a lot from what each other is doing. And I find that the Giving Pledge conferences that we have, the gatherings that we have annually, allows you to basically talk to others, find out what others are doing. You learn so many different ways of giving. And I think that's very inspiring. And of course, there are call-out sessions where, depending on what area you're interested in, you can actually learn a lot more about some of these specific areas of philanthropy. So I have met very fascinating people just being part of Giving Pledge. And then we also have started the India Philanthropy Initiative as an India-specific Giving Pledge kind of model, along with Azim Premji and Nandan and Rohini Nilekani and Jamshed Godrej and many others. And I think that is also growing now, because we feel Indians have been culturally very philanthropic, but we need to get the younger generation to really think about being philanthropic from the very early stages.
Okay, good. And thank you so much. There are a few questions that are popping up, and I'll try to ask them, but I have the first question on that list, which is, because of your background, we would all be very interested to know if you have comments on the COVID-19 vaccine or drugs development, how it's going. I mean, we hear so much stuff; it's just floating all over the place. So we wanted some really insight from you.
So I've been very involved in this whole area, as you can imagine. And, the government, the Department of Biotechnology has recently asked me to chair the National Biomedical Resource Indigenization Consortium, which is very exciting because I get to know firsthand all that is happening in the country. And I can tell you it's very exciting, and a lot of very important, innovative ideas are coming to the fore. And we're beginning to create a platform where people can collaborate. We are seeing a large number of companies who are capable of developing very, very innovative serological tests, which are far more, dependable and accurate than some of the tests that have been, criticized. We're looking at Indian companies diving into vaccine development. I've been talking to companies like Bharat Biotech and Biological E and Of course, everyone knows about Serum Institute and all that's happening in terms of developing a truly indigenous vaccine. There are, various efforts in terms of developing new therapeutics. My own company is repurposing a drug to see whether that will basically save lives. So there's a lot of exciting things happening. I think a lot of people want to know when will the vaccine actually be approved. And the answer to that is, look, everyone is very optimistic about it being approved in some form by the end of this year. And it is possible, but it is not going to be a final approval. It is likely to be a kind of a conditional emergency use approval. But even that's good enough, because then a lot of people do get access to such a vaccine. Personally, I believe it won't be just one vaccine. I think you'll have 2 or 3 vaccines being approved. And that's also good news for the world. And I think India will have to look at a vaccine that is affordable and that is easy to deliver.
So besides vaccine, is there some chance that maybe one of these drugs, you hear about Sorrento, you hear about Remdesivir and all of these, do you think that that has any strength?
Look, Remdesivir or, the Sorrento drug is still in vitro. It has got no in vivo data. But I think what is important is that there's a lot of drugs under trials. And I think we should not just focus on 1 or 2 drugs, because I think Remdesivir has got a lot of publicity, but we still need to wait for the data. And I don't think it is going to be the miracle drug that everyone is hoping it will be. Similarly, there are many other drugs that are being trialed. So I think we need to evaluate the role of each drug. And I think it's important for us to be very optimistic that we can manage the disease. If we can use a combination of all these drugs to save lives and to prevent the mortality rate and to significantly reduce the mortality rate, I think that would be a big win.
Okay, good. So I have a whole bunch of questions, and I don't think we have time for that many. Being a popular personality, everyone wants to know everything. But the first one that I'm going to go at is a question from Utkarsh, which he's saying to Kiran ma'am, since value creation is paramount, how far would the philanthropic act of giving go forth in a post-COVID age?
Well, I think philanthropy at the time of COVID has been extremely impressive in many, many ways. I know that there was crowdsourcing for COVID, and that was very successful. I for India, that whole program that took place, a huge amount was collected from various people around the country. So I think that was very indicative of the kind of giving culture that we have. But you're right. I mean, how do we make this sustain after COVID? I think we need to focus on a few national missions like universal healthcare. The COVID has also now reminded us that there are many people who are so poor that they need to be supported. How about, philanthropy for contributing towards a universal basic income? Those kind of things. Can we look at migrant workers and how to support them in a sustainable way? Many, many, many opportunities for philanthropy to think of. And I think it's up to all of us to really find our niche, our area of concern and interest.
Okay, good, thank you. And then there's a question from Nishant from Seva International. Net it out, it's basically saying, instead of super rich doing philanthropy directly, would it make sense if to improve the healthcare facilities, we have, let's say, 3% extra tax on super rich? Would that be something that would work?
I think this is a very easy way of saying, let's tax the super rich. I think I would like to see the super rich being more philanthropic, and that goes a much better way and much more effective way of solving problems than keeping on taxing people, because taxes are never used in the right way. And I believe that it's philanthropy that actually can make the difference. So for instance, if you see the amount of philanthropy that has gone into creating upgraded hospital facilities, for instance, this time around, I think that is commendable. You look what's happening in Mumbai, in Bangalore, in Delhi, wherever you look at it, philanthropy has come forward to basically create new wards, to upgrade existing hospitals, to provide ventilators. These are acts of philanthropy which are very, very important. If you just wanted to tax the super rich will feel fine. You've taxed us, so why do we need to do anything? I don't like that kind of attitude. So I think taxation is not the right way.
Okay, thank you so much. And then there is a question from Ishpita. She's saying, what is holding back more women entrepreneurs in India? How can this community support them?
Well, I think there has been a lot of bias in terms of investing in women entrepreneurs. There seems to be an old boys club that prefers to invest in male-led businesses. Unfortunately, that's still true. I have been through it in my early days when I knew that there was a huge gender bias when it came to investing. I've been always told that women are not big risk takers, women are not aggressive, women are not business sort of savvy. I think all that is a myth. I think today you can see that even in the vaccine world, I just had a panel discussion yesterday with two amazing women in the vaccine world. One is Suchitra Ella, who is the wife of Krishna Ella from Bharat Biotech. And the other is my very dear friend Mahima Datla, who heads Biologically. These are very large vaccine companies. And Mahima is someone who is so cerebral, so business savvy. And I don't see why we have to keep on, explaining or defending this particular area. I think people are missing a huge opportunity if they don't invest in women entrepreneurs and women-led businesses. And I think this is the time where we are seeing that a large number of initiatives and new ideas are coming from both men and women alike.
Okay, great. And so the last question is, what kind of purchasing power and behavior are you seeing in Indian women, especially from a health perspective?
Well, I think, it depends which strata of society you look at. If you look at the urban woman, I think the urban woman is certainly very confident and very health conscious and making sure that a lot of her money is spent on fitness and looking good and looking fit. The rural woman, I think, is aspiring for, looking good and feeling confident. And I think a lot of money now is being invested in education. The rural woman, the rural mother spends a lot of money on educating her children. I think that's a very good sign. The urban mother also would do anything to educate her children to be very well educated. So I think in India, we spend a lot of money on education. And recently, I think we are beginning to look at health and fitness as a very important area to also look at.
Thank you very much. We only have a minute now, and so I'll give you the floor to make your parting comments.
Well, my parting comments to everyone is, please understand that it's important for a country like India to be entrepreneurial, to create wealth, and make a difference with the wealth you create.
Kiran, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure speaking to you, and look forward to chatting with you soon again.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I wanted to do is that I wanted to just show you the book. We'll come back and chat with Binny in a minute, and then I will give you some perspectives that I got, inspiring perspectives that I got from the book, which is What Shall We Do With All This Money? Inspiring Perspectives on Wealth. There is a website which is allthismoney.com. So you can go to allthismoney.com and you can see a little bit more information on that. So with that, let me now switch and please bring Binny Bansal online. And so he's another successful billionaire entrepreneur. And Binny, welcome. I wanted
to thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And so I wanted to just get the topic started. What shall I do with all this money? But again, yeah. Binny, just everybody in the Indian diaspora knows you, but we have got a wide audience from all over the world. And so may I please first request you to share your major milestones, where you grew up, your schooling, college, career.
Yeah, so I grew up in Chandigarh in North India, and did schooling there. And then I went to Delhi for my engineering. I studied computer science at IIT Delhi, and then I worked for a couple of years came to Bangalore, worked here for a couple of years as a software engineer. And in my so I worked at two companies. Firstly, I've worked at a company called Sagna, and then in early 2007, I joined Amazon as a software engineer. But at Amazon, our team didn't have a lot of work, so I was getting quite bored. I was not learning anything, not making any impact. So that was a time when I decided to start a company on my own, along with my co-founder, Sachin, who had similar ideas. And that's when Flipkart idea got started in middle of 2007, and by end of 2007, we had launched the company. So Flipkart, as a lot of people would know, is an e-commerce company. It sells almost everything you can sell on the planet now. But the journey started with just one category, which was books, and we bootstrapped the company for first 2-3 years. We didn't with like $8,000 of savings we had over the first 2 years. And long story short, in 2018, Walmart acquired the company. And for the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of work in the entrepreneurship ecosystem and working with a lot of entrepreneurs, helping them investing in a lot of companies as well. And I also started co-founded a new sort of platform called X210X Technologies, where the mission is to help growth companies in their scaling journey in multiple ways.
Okay, good. Thank you. So we'll come back to some of the recent things, but I just want to sort of take you back to your years of growing up. So you said you grew up in Chandigarh, you went to IIT Delhi. So can you just share some perspectives on your perspectives on wealth as you were growing up?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I think there was actually, I would say there was perspective, I would say, on money and work, but wealth, probably there was no sort of perspective on wealth or understanding of what wealth is. I mean, I grew up in a middle class family, and I think everybody around us was basically working to make a living and trying to have a comfortable life, sort of working to make money to have a comfortable life. And I think any or whatever wealth probably somebody created, they went into buying a house or something, right? So I did not actually probably have a perspective on wealth at that time, given I think given sort of the environment in which I grew in.
And so fast forwarding to today, now that you sort of made it like, grand slam out of the ballpark, home run or sixer, how has your perspective changed?
Yeah, I think so. Today, I think the perspective has obviously evolved in a fairly large way. I think the perspective on work for me, I think even from the beginning, and one of the key reasons to start Flipkart was also to really learn and have an impact, while making money was obviously also important. But I think the perspective on wealth is new, and I think the way I would think about it today, and it's still evolving, I would say. I mean, it's because if you think about it, since 2007 to almost 18, like 11 years, it was like a long marathon, and with no time to really look back and see where and think about deeply about all these things. I think it's been only maybe 18 odd months since things have changed a lot, and there's time to reflect on some of this. So I think the perspective of wealth is evolving. I think it is clear to me that I think wealth is sort of another means towards sort of the goal of creating impact in the world and the society, which was always the goal, I guess. Before that, there was no wealth, so it was only sweat you could use. It was only your efforts you could use. And I think going forward, I think it is basically now about using both effort and the sort of and wealth as two instruments to create impact in various ways. And obviously, one way that I've done and I know is through sort of a business by doing something on your own, or by investing in other entrepreneurs who are also trying to make a change and trying to make an impact. And I think the new sort of other way I'm also exploring is philanthropy, and that is something I've started exploring maybe a year and a half back. I think first person with
So
which I
Binny, can we
started
just
with.
come back to that in a second?
Yeah,
So
sure.
sorry to interrupt you, but I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
want to come back to that in a second. Before that, I want to just jump into the topic, which is what shall I do with all this money? So can I just sort of pick your brains? You've been now, after having exited, now you've had some time to start the process of thinking, and I want to get your ideas on thoughts on allocation of wealth, right? Everybody has allocation on wealth. You have family, welfare, long-term trust, philanthropy. Just give us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think there is allocation of wealth. Also, I mean, it's also probably also linked to uh, where you are in your sort of career as well, and what you're trying to do as well. So I think from an allocation perspective, what is clear from a long-term perspective, let's say 10 years, 15, 20 years from now, I think I see that a large part of the allocation is probably going to go towards more philanthropic activities. Whereas today, I think it is, again, given that there are other ways to create impact as well. So I'm looking at both the buckets. That one is obviously I want to invest in people who are trying to create impact, enable them. Second, what are things I want to do myself to create impact, and how much capital is needed for that, and how do you and some allocation goes there. And then for the future sort of significant allocation, I think to philanthropy, I mean, sort of an exploratory learning journey and allocating starting to allocate small amounts, working with 2, 3 organizations, people to sort of learn and also discover what the things that I'm passionate about and I want to really get behind.
Okay, and so again, here is a question direct where we're just all trying to find out what's next for Binny. So is there another entrepreneurial idea which is coming out? Maybe you want to announce it today?
No, not really. I think it is still in a discovery mode.
Yes, but I mean, you're obviously so young that I'm sure that you will get ideas. But any vertical sector? I mean, do you still want to stay with e-commerce? You want to, are there other areas that you are discovering?
No, I think e-commerce was obviously an area where I mean I've done a lot of work already, and I think it is a very exciting sector, and probably after COVID it becomes even more exciting. But I think my interests had started to sort of widen about 3, 4 years back. So I've ended up investing in a lot of different sectors, fintech, SaaS as well. And consumer brands, etc. So I think now the deep interest area is really entrepreneurship itself, and how entrepreneurs are changing, can create impact, and how they can really change, make things more efficient, drive sort of new innovations. So I think that area itself is probably the new playground.
Okay, great. So I'll come back to where I interrupted you, and sorry about that, but I just want to now ask you questions about when you started your giving journey, and I understand that you've already made a few grants. So can you please tell us about that now?
Yes, so as I said, I was sort of in an exploratory and discovery and learning mode from that perspective. So I think a good place to start, obviously, when you're in that journey is start sort of close to where you start with people who are close to you. So I started helping Mikin, who was our CTO, in Flipkart and now runs the Udyam Foundation. So after exiting Flipkart in 2016, I think he started his philanthropic journey full time, and I got very excited about it for a couple of reasons. One, because it was obviously Nikin who was doing it, and I really respect what he can do, and I know him very well, and he's a really good friend. And second, I think the topic he chose, which was about change, which was about inculcating entrepreneurial mindset in the youth of the country, so that they can be self-reliant and do not need to depend on jobs which are not which the country doesn't really have in numbers that are needed. I think the mission was really amazing as well. And third, the way he was approaching it and thinking about it, and thinking about having impact at scale, and his execution approach, and was also something that looked very appealing to me. So that's one area where both from a time and money perspective, I've been fairly deeply involved. And second has been the Nest Foundation with Atul, where again I'd known about Atul since he was at InMobi and in the startup ecosystem. So I'd known about Atul, and we had a few meetings. And again, I got inspired by what he was trying to do, about his mission of making basically getting more talent into philanthropy, basically growing philanthropy in the country itself, which is a huge mission in itself. And so that became the second area where I got involved, both again from a time and from a grant perspective as well. And then the third one recently has been with my alma mater, with my college, IT Delhi, where they are starting a endowment fund. And I became sort of one of the founding members of the endowment fund, and I'm on the board of the fund as well, and I'm one of the key donors, early donors to the endowment fund for IT.
Oh, good. I mean, this is interesting. I mean, I absolutely adore the stuff that Atul is doing, Atul Shatija of Nudge, and also Mekin. I think this whole micro entrepreneurship idea was just mind blowing when he told me about it. And so they're continuing to just work progress on it. And I think this IIT Delhi initiative, I think this is fantastic. One of the things that I always talk about to friends, because I went to undergrad in India, but I went to graduate school in US. And my US alma mater, University of Texas at Austin, chases me, pings me, goes after me, their endowment, the way professionally they do it, other karte hain, they really do a different, way in which they do this fundraising for endowment, and also keep the alumni all packed together. And I think this is something that is missing. And so if IIT Delhi finds that sort of model, and that can be replicated in many, many other universities, especially some of the universities that are not as famous at IIT Delhi, if they get a good endowment project going, then I think we can improve the infrastructures, we can improve the education system, and of course the professors, etc. So again, I really appreciate your sharing those three theses with us. And so I just wanted to now just shift to the current pandemic, because everybody obviously has some thoughts on it. And so I want to just get some perspectives from you, in terms of what you see. That I know that you are in 2 cities, so maybe you can talk about that, so that from both the cities' perspective, what is your sense on this current pandemic?
Yeah, so I've been in Bangalore since last 3 or 4 months. I think once since sort of the pandemic really started in end of Feb. So I've not had a chance. So I don't have deep perspective on Singapore. I think Singapore probably saw first wave very early when I was not there, and then things settled down, and now then they had a second wave, and again things are sort of settling back. I think it's a small country. It's probably easier to manage. I think things in India are obviously a bit different, where the lockdown has really helped, I guess. But even with the lockdown, we are seeing cases go up. So I think it's very important for, I think, everyone who can sort of afford to help others be willing to sort of do so at this time. It is a difficult time for everyone from both a health perspective and livelihoods perspective. And I think that's what I am trying to do as well. So along again with Atul on the on the Give India side, and helping with grants, and again my time on the advisory board as well.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm going to now switch to some of the questions that are coming. There are, again, zillions of questions coming. We don't have enough time, Binny. You're a popular person, but I'll just try and net it out on terms of the top questions that are coming up here.
Yeah.
So there's a question about from Chitra that she's saying post-COVID, the e-commerce will definitely see a raise. And so are there any ideas for investment in training for jobs, especially for the most vulnerable migrant workers that can be part of the supply chain? And if so, what kind of investments would you prioritize? Top three.
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think not just e-commerce. I think there's a host of sectors which will see different big uptick from in the post-COVID world. I think online education, edtech is going to be another large another sector, and I think even health tech might also see large uptick. So there is definitely going to be a need for a lot of new workforce coming into these sectors, and but I do think, I mean, the investment into training and ramping up workforce will be done by the entrepreneurs running these companies in a systematic way. So I think that that's why I really believe in the power of entrepreneurship, and I think people working on a mission and doing things systematically in a sustainable way, because I think that I really believe in that model very deeply. So I think entrepreneurs will take care of it.
Okay, good. And so related to that, there is a question from Jonali who says, hello, Binny, women's entrepreneurship at the grassroots level needs a flip, especially after COVID. What are your thoughts on how to support efforts in this area?
Yeah, I think it's a deep question. There's probably no easy answer. I think things like Mickens program of micro entrepreneurship. Again, there's another program called Game, which is it also works in the same field, not on mindset, but actually enabling entrepreneurship. And I think their goal is to have their goal is that 50% of those micro entrepreneurs should be women. So I think, again, a systematic sort of way of doing this and working with organizations who are doing this is probably important.
Okay. And then there is a question from Damayanti. She's asking, saying, can entrepreneurship really be taught? There are plenty of courses out there, but most successful entrepreneurs seem to be accidental or not trained in entrepreneurship. What are the 3 secrets of success for aspiring entrepreneurs in your view, Binny?
Yeah, I think entrepreneurship is as much as about mindset as it is about skills. So I think the first thing is really a mindset, and getting into the mindset of an entrepreneur. It's about being sort of having a vision, being confident about your dreams, and some ability to take risks as well, right? So all those mindsets and being persistent. So that's a mindset game. And then obviously there are skills about being sort of using money effectively and planning and all of that. So I think all of these can be, actually, if you look at it, a lot of these can be inculcated. Some people are born with it. I think even when you say people are born with it, it is mostly because of their environment or the experiences that they've gone through, that they got these things inculcated rather than being born with it. So that's what I believe. And that's why I'm very big supporter of what Mickey is doing, because I believe entrepreneurship mindset can be inculcated into people. And actually he has proven that by now, after having worked with so many kids, that after this program, we have seen a 30-40% conversion rate where like there is a clear shift in mindset and sort of impact. So I think both the skills and the mindset can be changed. It's difficult, but I think I'm very bullish that we'll see a lot of impact coming from this.
And so have you personally, Binny, are you from a business family, or your partner Sachin? I mean, either of you were from business family, and can you just give us a little bit of genesis of how that happened?
Yeah.
How did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah. No, so I'm not from a business family at all. So my father was a manager in Punjab National Bank, and my mom was a section officer in the Government of India. But Sachin comes from a business family. So his father was in the business of trading in Chandigarh. But I think for me, again, the becoming an entrepreneur was again about sort of learning and basically trying to make an impact. And I guess I had the risk appetite and the long-term view to do it. I think the way I thought about it was that if I do not do this, it is much more riskier than if I don't do it, it is much more risky if I stay in a job. It was that because I was not learning from a long-term perspective. I was not learning anything, going anywhere. So, and if I failed at this after a couple of years, I could still always go back to a job given the education and given my skills. So I think that confidence was there. So there was no need for a backup, so as to speak. So I think for me, it was that's what made the decision sort of easier to start.
Okay. Last couple of questions, Binny. One is, what needs to happen in order for affluent people to contribute more towards combating social issues? Does having a target goal like building 100 toilets would help, or else what should be other ways?
I think it has to be. I think the biggest one is going to be. I think you have to kind of start almost. You have to start a movement like that. So it has to be probably a lot about things which, like Kiran was talking about, like the Giving Pledge and the IPI initiative, like people inspiring other people. I think and then yes, some top level goals about it, like universal healthcare, universal education, like having some really inspirational goals to go after, and then I think people sort of learning from other people who've done that and getting inspired by philanthropic journeys of other people. For example, for me, I think Azim Premji's journey has been probably very inspirational. I think the way it's gone about it, and not just his own philanthropic journey, but the way he's also trying to get the whole ecosystem going. So I think those things can have a big impact.
Okay, thank you. And the last question is that Sabina is asking this, that Binny, are you a bigger fan of more Indian unicorns or more Indian mass entrepreneurship, and why?
I think both are important. I think for a country like India, you need both. I think unicorns are important because some things can be done only efficiently at scale, and so you do need entrepreneurs who can build things at scale so that for the consumers or for businesses, things become more efficient, less costly, and more effective. And I think for a country of the size of India, mass entrepreneurship is also equally important because there are never going to be enough jobs. So we need a large part of the workforce to be self-reliant, to be able to stand on their own feet. And that's also where I think unicorns can create platforms where they enable a lot of this as well. So I think it's a good symbiotic relationship which probably needs to exist going forward.
Okay. Thank you, Binny. And I just want to give you the platform now, if you want to spend a couple of minutes on just parting thoughts, parting words.
Yeah, I think my parting words would be probably to, I think again, so younger audience, that I think creating, sort of thinking about creating impact for others in a country like India is very important, whether and using all the means you have to do that. Whether it could be your efforts or time, and I mean, if you have money to spare as well, then it could be financial as well. I think doing that, especially in these times, would go a long way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Binny. I really appreciate your taking the time today and share your valuable insights. And And thank you to both you, Binny, and to Kiran. I'm just going to spend the next few minutes because Atul wanted me to leave some big picture takeaways from my book. What shall we do with all this money? So again, here's the book of interviews that I've compiled. It's called What Shall We Do With All This Money? Inspiring Perspectives on Wealth. And there is a website there, which is allthismoney.com. So you can go to that and see some more information on it. But I will just give you the upshot is for people who joined us late that it's a compilation of book of interviews, which I did last year. And it is an interview with over 50 heroes and unsung heroes of men and women of Indian diaspora from worldwide, from US, from UK, Africa, Middle East, Singapore, Malaysia, India, folks like, again, I've mentioned these names, I'm just mentioning them again for people who might have joined late. People like Mr. Ratan Tata, Amit Chandra, Rohini Nilekani, Vineet Rai, Vikram Gandhi, Professor Jagdish Sheth, Shekhar Kapoor, Sanjeev Bikhchandani, Mohandas Pai, Om Swami, Deepak Chopra, and many others. So the most important and common theme is that everyone from Indian diaspora is committed to giving back to the community. So again, there are no easy answers from talking to all these people in terms of allocation of funds, which I also asked Kiran and Binny. But again, there is not sort of a set pattern. There are no easy answers to allocation of funds because it depends on our individual situation. However, what jumps out is the sectors that the Indian diaspora likes is education and healthcare sort of jumps out, and entrepreneurship. Now, entrepreneurship and is of two types, right? So there is a tech entrepreneurship startup world, and then there is, of course, this social entrepreneurship, and which I'll talk about in a second. So these two sort of are the biggest thing that came out. The biggest motivation for me to write this book was for millennials, right? So there is a section on millennials, which is most inspiring. So millennials are going to inherit, millions and hundreds of millions, specifically of Indian diaspora, are going to inherit hundreds of millions of dollars worldwide. And so I have a section in it where I've interviewed a bunch of millennials, and the good news is that all of them are looking for purpose, right? So this is one common theme. And so as you read the interviews in the millennial section, you can check out, the names of the millennials also in allthismoney.com. So today the affluent folks are caught, right, in this sudden downturn in their portfolios and their businesses. They want to contribute to COVID-19 funding, and requests are coming from every corner. Everyone is trying to do their part and also looking for help. And of course, once this pandemic is over, we have to continue on this sustainable development goals. So again, part of the book, there is one thing that comes out also is that beside allocation to giving, right, which is grants, non-profit, basically you give and there is no economic returns, only social impact returns. The other one is microfinance and micro lending. So that money circles back, it comes back to you, you can put it back into the system. So it does good while it's circulating out there in micro lending. And then, of course, social impact happens, but you get that back and then you circulate it. But the third one, which is most important in terms of the current timing, is people like Avishkar, people like Vineet Rai, who's also been interviewed in the book, is something which we call impact investing, right? So beyond all these institutions, the many DFIs institutions, family offices, charitable trust, high net worth individuals, they are looking at social impact investing, which is for-profit companies which are doing good, right, on all these vertical sectors. So that's pretty much all the time I have. I'd love for you to go on allthismoney.com and discover this book, What Shall We Do With All This Money? Inspiring Perspectives on Wealth, and look forward to getting feedback from you guys as well. In the meantime, may I please personally thank Nudge and Atul Shatija and team of Nisha and all this team at Nudge, and very heartfelt thanks to Kiran Shaw Mazumdar and to Binny Bansal. Thank you very much, folks. Over to you, Lakshmi.
Thank you so much for this really engaging conversation, Jayesh and Binny. We will look to the book. Looks like it's full of interesting conversations. We will now be moving to breakout sessions on the respective tracks for the next couple of hours. before we reconvene back here for the closing plenary session at 1 p.m. for a conversation with a couple of India's biggest philanthropists, Rohini Nilekani and Ashish Dhawan. Until then, goodbye, and I look forward to seeing you back here at 1 p.m. Take care.